Morning of the 19th of October 2022. A good moment to be rammed. You idiot. You make things more difficult, but you will be sold soon to go to 10 new ladies. Life will be easier here, but not as interesting. This is a little video. The last one is many months ago. It's been busy. Where I'm going to show you the current situation, what the grazing looks like, and more importantly, what in a holistically planned grazing setting the situation looks like for the coming winter. So for starters, we still have quite a lot of green grass to be enjoyed by, at the moment, 22 animals. We are still moving through grass land which has been recovering since May this year. That is what this looks like. Hello, darling. Oh, I'm being hugged to death by Ram and a horny lady. That's a no pun intended. So recovering since May. This grass has been growing all those months, and of course it has started getting colder. Actually, last night was -2 Celsius, so there was a little bit of ice on the grass. Now it has all melted again. There's still a lot of dew over there on the seed heads, but here where they have been now for maybe half an hour, that has all gone. And they've uncovered, or they have discovered, quite a bit of green grass still hiding amongst some yellow and brown, but this is really quite good stuff for them. And we have some left. Not much of this particular quality. It's basically this small area here that we still have to go through, and I estimate that will take 3, maybe 4 days at most. Then we're done with that. And then there is still not an awful lot, but maybe a week's worth of grass which has been recovering since late August. No, since mid-August. And that is a lot shorter than this, but on the plus side, there is hardly any yellow-brown material in there. It is almost completely green. Again, not as tall, but a lot juicier and sweeter and probably more protein rich than this, which is turning a bit more fibrous by now. So maybe 10, 11 days left of grazing outside the winter area. So they have been in the area that will now be winter area until mid-August. Then I pulled them out of that and put them on that. That is, by the way, the winter area is 2.5 hectares. The grassland I've got outside that winter area to be is about 1.5 hectares. So we've been grazing those 1.5 hectares since mid-August. This is the last bit of what remains as, say, first grazing after mid-August, and then the part that we're going to return to after we're done with these 3 or 4 days. It has already been grazed once since mid-August, but it has recovered. The growth has not been tall, but the green has recovered, and it's recovered enough that oh, there we go again. Hello. It has recovered enough that the roots have also recovered again. That area, by the way, is between this main grazing area and this main grazing area. I'm being harassed here. So it's a path that leads basically around this largest grazing area of 2 hectares. And again, that will be roughly enough for a week, is my estimate. Then what? Well, first, I would like to compare this, what you see here. So they're still getting, on average, once a day, a completely fresh area like this, No manure, or at least if there is manure, I can't find it from last May. It's all been worked into the soil and rotted down and worked on by insects and birds and so on. So no disease load, or very, very little. Yes. And basically just a lot of untouched, unspoiled grass. If I compare that to all the graziers that I know about in the surrounding area, they are down to, well, not much really. There are many examples of people already feeding hay. There are even some examples of people who never really stopped during the summer because there simply wasn't enough grass on their land. In comparison, we haven't fed hay since, I think, late March or early April. I would have to look that up. And there's really no sign of us needing hay anytime soon, because there is still enough grass outside the winter area for them to keep going for another 10-11 days. It might be a bit more, it might be a bit less. And it all depends on when winter really hits. Once the ground starts freezing over, then I will not be able to use these mobile nets anymore, because the spikes will not get into the ground anymore, and if they're in, I can't get them out. So before a real frost threat comes, I will have to move them into the winter area, even if we're not done outside the winter area yet. If I then think about the more conventional graziers in the area, and I see that their grass doesn't look anything like this. It is basically winding down. The animals have been in their areas. If there's just one large grazing area, they've been there all growing season. In that case, they will have grazed some of the plants and probably not grazed some of the other plants at all, leading to a patchwork of tufts of old material, which is by now so brown and yellow and devoid of nutrients that the animals are not interested in it anymore. And patches where the grass has been continuously, repeatedly been grazed down, because every time it started to recover by sacrificing root to make new green growth above ground, the animals came back for that new juicy soft bite, of course preferring that to the grass which had already started going fibrous. And as the season progresses, even if you have fewer animals, then can actually graze down the whole area and under attack again. Oh dear. Feel like a bullfighter here sometimes. Fortunately, jumping aside is the trick which always works, and then he wants to be cuddled. Big bully. So it just really looks different. You can see that this is holistically planned grazed. You can see that the animals have not been here for months, that the plants have had a chance to recover fully from that. And even though they're winding down for winter, there still is a lot. And if we look at the next paddock, which I've already prepared for them in here, with a few hazel trees which I've already protected, there just is a lot of fresh green still. So again, going to the other more conventional graziers that I know of, for winter, when the growth stops, there is nothing left. The repeatedly grazed grasses and other plants will not regrow again in winter, because growth just stops. And the tufts of over-rested plants are just not nutritious anymore, and they won't take it. And therefore they'll need hay. Quite a few of them will be put inside in a barn with a far greater manure presence all the time, with all the disease-causing agents that can be in there. Whereas our animals will get this. This here is the smaller of our winter stockpile areas. and then over there, so that's the shelter they'll be having access to. Wherever they are in this area, I'll be strip grazing this. So this area of 1/2 hectare is divided into 2 roughly equal halves by a fence that runs here. And then I'll, with these white plastic posts, I'll be preparing little divisions so I can strip graze the area. So from their shelter on, they'll be guided into this part. They'll get a first little area first, and then a net fence draped over those white plastic posts so that I don't have to push them into the ground, so I can hang them over the white plastic posts and get them off quite easily again, and then move them to the next bit. I'll graze this area bit by bit, strip grazing fashion, and they will still have all this grass. I know for a fact that this is the greenest grass that I've seen in the surrounding area by quite a large margin, or quite a large region. Again, this has been recovering since mid-August. That is not a very long time, and of course after mid-August temperatures go down, the growth slows down. The warm season plants kinda are done with their growth. They've gone to seed mostly, and then they slow down. The cool season plants have taken over a bit since then, so they are still growing, even though there's been a bit of frost with nice weather like this. There's been a bit of rain, there's been a bit of sun. They can have a chance to grow a bit until winter really hits. This is a lot of food, and this will, if it's any kind of decent winter at all, fairly quickly be preserved by snow. Quite a lot of the green material may die when the snow hits, and when the temperatures really go down, it can easily go down to -20 Celsius here in winter. But it will be preserved underneath the snow and by the frost. That green remains green and will remain nutritious for the animals, far more so than hay is. Even the best hay loses quite a bit of nutrition during the drying process. So this is again recovered since mid-August. Let's now go see the area that's been recovering since May or thereabouts. And there we are. Since I have cycled the sheep through this 2 hectare area bit by bit in almost 40 paddocks. Of course, there's a large range of recovery times, so this has been recovering since, I would estimate, late May. There are still flowers here. There's some red clover, there's hedge bed straw. Here and there I can see a tansy flower still. You'd almost say it looks a tiny little bit like spring sometimes still. And here we go into another area, and this has been recovering since early May at least. It may be a bit hard to see on the video, but this is, let me just get into it without getting zapped on the electric wire. This is a fair amount of growth. My hand goes down quite deep in that. And most of it, really most of it, is still green. And with the right winter conditions will stay green for many months into winter. And so I will give them paddock by paddock in here as well. In this case, probably 32 paddocks. And then 8 at least in the area that we just saw where recovery has been taking place since mid-August. So that's a fair amount of time for between 15 and 20 animals, I estimate. I'm trying to sell a few still, but it seems as if it's not optimal times for selling animals. People maybe have more, they think, pressing needs, energy and stuff. I would argue there's never a better time to start working on your own food production than now, but now, really, that's should be one of your main priorities. And preferably not in a self-sufficient way, but in a community kind of fashion, and not in the World Economic Forum kind of community sense, but in real, functional, small, local community. Something that some people have told me Swedish people are not all that great at. Not in this area. I hope people will prove me wrong. Can we not work together on producing food, building material, clothing, water, all the important stuff? Can we? That would be wonderful. So what have I shown you? I have shown you 2.5 hectares of food planned. By planning, I have produced 2.5 hectares of pretty lush green, which will feed my sheep through winter. My hay costs, I've bought some, just to be sure, but that can last a few years in the barn. I hope I will not need it, and I've done everything I can to ensure that I will need as little as possible. Holistically planned grazing. Brilliant stuff. Cheers.